Welcome to the doghouse. I got a simple question here. Do you guys believe God is a fool? No, I ain't a Bible thumper. I ain't preaching anybody's religion or religious views. These are my views. I don't care whether you believe in God or not. Does not make a difference to me because it is your opinion. I got friends that don't believe in God. Some do. But they're my friends because they're my friends, not because of their religious beliefs. So these are mine. And what I mean by out there, do you think God's a fool? Do you think Jim Jones going out and do what he did, that he didn't think that he was invincible? You know what? He was. God knows it. He was trying to convince God of something that he wanted God to be convinced of. But God is no fool. He knew that. I've seen some people even on YouTube and that get on here, they preach a Christian view and saying how almighty they are and all this stuff, and they go out there and do what God preached against. But these people really think God is a fool. They have convinced themselves, and even people around you probably the same way. I got some around me too, that they can convince God they are right. They can pull the wool over God's eyes. That's an impossible task. If you believe in God, that's not going to happen. Yes, I've seen people do that. I've seen them go out there and get up there, even around here, like I said, around here and preach how wonderful and great they are and how Christian they are. But after Sunday, they turn around and try to destroy everybody in front of them. They are really trying to convince God that they are a wonderful person. But yet, in the long run, they're saying they think God is a fool. And they really do. And it's a shame. How many people around you do that too? I mean, when you go out there and say, God will forgive you, which He will, but you go out there and on the week you're doing all this bad stuff, but on Sunday or whatever day you decide you go to church, you are a good Christian or a good religious person and you repent all your sins for the week and you turn around and do them again. This is a person that believes God is a fool because it don't work that way. You have to have true convictions when you do that. You're better off in not saying nothing as to going out and try to convince God of your need forgiven for all this stuff and you turn around and do it all week long. You really are thinking God is a fool. And He's not. How many times, even in the Bible, you read through it, that people really thought God, that believed in God, but for whatever reason, they thought they convinced God that they were right, and all they're really doing is saying God's a fool, which He is not. I've seen a person on here get on here and say if he does wrong, he can be forgiven, which I said is true. But he's one of them that thinks God, he and she thinks God is a fool. And right now, I could walk out my door and point at a couple of people that think the exact same thing. This is not about one person. This is not meant to be about one person. This is just meant to the overall view of people thinking they can fool God. God is not a fool. God knows when you're doing right and wrong. If you're trying to bluff him, he will know it. What are you going to do when it's your time? Go up and say, well, I told you this, I told you that. It won't work. But people think they can use God as an excuse to do wrong. Yes, sometimes we do it inadvertently or whatever when we decide what we did was wrong and we ask for forgiveness. I don't do that a lot at all. I should, but when you ask for forgiveness, that means you're really trying to improve on what you're doing, or improve to be better, not improve on the wrong. But if you do that, you're turning around constantly redoing it. All you're doing is telling God he is a fool. And the fool would be the person that thinks God is a fool. He will take care of you in the end. And it's not going to be the way you think. Now, like I say, I don't go to church or nothing else. That don't mean I don't believe in God, but I I won't even tell you you need to do this or that because I have to worry about what I am doing. And believe me, I'm not holier now. I'm probably close to the bottom on things. But once again, I ain't out there trying to fool God. This is what I am. I'm trying not to fool anybody. And that's the way everybody should be. But they're not. And to me, a lot of this is people trying to fool God of who they really are. And you can't. You can make excuses. You can cut people down. And then you say, please forgive me, God. And you keep doing it. God knows you're trying to make a fool out of you. And it won't work. Everybody has to learn, or should learn, damn fly. But everybody should learn that you're not going to fool God in the end. If you believe in God, you know this, or you do know it, but you still try to go out and fool him. And it's on a daily basis wherever you're at that this happens. If you're around a lot of people, this is going to happen at least to somebody trying this. This is because of certain things set in their mind that they think they're one above God and they have decided money is more important than God instead of the idea you need money to live and you got to go forward in life. But greed and money is very much put over God in these cases. They will say anything about God as long as they're getting the money, which is greed. And for whatever reason, this is okay. But how are you going to answer to God that you thought he was a fool? Really, what are you going to tell him? You're a fool, God? That'd be a real bad mistake. Because really, that's what you're doing when you go out and do some of this stuff. You're thinking God, which give you the freedom to do everything in this world you want. There's nothing you can't do. But you still think he's a fool. He has given us so much and so many ways to do things. And like I said, you don't need to be super religious to realize there is a God. This is my opinion. But you don't have to shove it in people's faces. And this is not what I'm talking about at all, shoving a religion in somebody's face. because your religion is your business. This is about those going out using it and trying to make fool of God. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to make a fool of God. And shame on everyone that does that. Like I say, I'm not religious at all, but I don't claim to be. And I'm not trying to make a fool out of God, because you cannot. But believe me, many, many people, and this is a lot of them getting at, will use a religious aspect in their lives to make an excuse for something bad they're doing, trying to make it out to be good. And God is supposed to believe you because you're the high and mighty preacher in the world, or pastor, or whatever it may be where you're at. And you're making all this money, so God should do what you say. And a lot of people believe that. Their greed sets in so bad that they think they can make a fool out of God. And it's a shame that this happens. It's heartbreaking to see people do this. Do what you want to do. Go out, do what you want to do, but don't try to make a fool out of God. Nobody is stopping you from doing what you want. Nobody. And like I said, and once again, I'm going to repeat this, I'm not out here preaching to anybody. I'm just saying what people will do. Even if you don't believe in God, people still do this. People will mock what they believe in God, and a lot of people do. They say they believe in God, and I believe them. They really do. But they're only going to believe in God at their convenience, because they will make mockery of God for dollars and cents. They will try to make a fool out of God. That's like I've heard one person say, well, you can never get in the good graces of God. And this person thinks he's in the good graces and he's doing evils out there in the world. Well, two things are wrong with that. One, he's not God. He can't tell people that they can or believe or not believe or will meet him one day. A person like that has no business judging somebody else like that. Just don't, if you believe it, just that's your opinion, and just sometimes you just walk away. But this other person is in it for the money. And I've seen people around here, the same thing. And I've seen people doing it not necessarily for money, but to feed their ego that they can do this and God will do this. But they're trying to make a fool out of God and trying to make God do what they want. And that's a lot of it. These guys are out there, and women, the same way, trying to make a fool out of God. They are saying they have the right to dictate and do everything because God will listen to them. They're over God. And they're not. There's no way. They're trying to make a fool out of God. They have people take this money in way, way too far when it comes to God, and they will put the money over God. I hope everybody makes as much money as they can, and I kudos to everybody that does that. But there's such thing as ethics and things you shouldn't do, and people cross that line. Because regardless of how much money you have or how little, or if you're even on the street living off the street, God should always become before that dollar does, if you believe in God. And if you're putting money above God, you are trying to make a fool out of God. I don't care how you slice it, it still comes out. You're trying to make a fool out of God. At what point do you say, whoop, I'm wrong, I got to change and go the other way? Everybody has that opportunity. Everybody has that opportunity to fall on their face and change what they are doing. And like I said, and I'm going to repeat it again in case somebody missed it, I believe in God, but I'm not that religious as far as telling people what to do and what not to do. I care less. I'm not that religious of a person. I really not. But I do believe in God, and I'm not putting anything I do above God because it don't work that way. I can believe, and I'm not trying to put myself in the same realm as God. I'm not going to do that. I don't have the right to do that. I know a lot more people that are more religious than I'd ever be, but I'm here for me. What I mean by that is I'm not lying to God of who I am. I'm not trying to convince him I'm somebody I am not. Because when you do that, you're trying to convince God of something that don't exist in your life. You're trying to make a fool out of God, and that's a very, very bad thing to do. Just think about that for a minute. Is it worth it? Is it worth doing that? I'm not like, just because you don't go to church and you're not that religious, you still can believe. And that might seem a little weird, but it's really not, because it's my choice and it's going to be consequences on me for what I'm doing wrong. But one thing that'll never happen is being accused of being above God, because I am not. I'm not above anybody in this world, and I really feel that way. I'm better than nobody. Sometimes my actions are better than some, but as a person, it's not. Another thing people do, that they'll go out and quote something out of the Bible. Sometimes if you read a verse, if you don't read the whole chapter, it doesn't have the same meaning. But people will go pick out a verse to justify what they are doing, whether that whole chapter has anything to do with it or not. They went and read a chapter and picked something out that didn't have anything to do with what they are arguing, and they're trying to say this verse proves this. Once again, you're trying to make a fool out of God. You may be trying to convince others on this earth, but you're still out there trying to make a fool out of God. Whether you realize it or not, this is exactly what you are doing when you do that. Everybody has a different faith belief, and that's well and fine. But most people don't put the money that believe in God, will not put money above God. And like I said earlier, go out and make as much money as you want, but never put it above God. I know people that have, not personally, but around here, that have millions of dollars, and they give back. Our 4th of July, every bit of the fireworks comes from this company. The city, the county don't put nothing out as far as the fireworks go. They do have to do the crowd control, obviously, and stuff like that. But here's a guy that has a lot of money, but he still puts God before his money. And I know people that barely get by. Sometimes I'm that way, but barely get by and have a big family, and they scrape by, and they can work hard for their money, but they still never put money above God. When we start to do that, we're losing so much of ourselves. When you're trying to fool God, you're going down to a level you should never go as a human being. Even if you don't believe in God, you don't want to go down to that level. Maybe you believe there's no such a thing, but when you put money above all else, it still won't work, whether you believe in God or not. I'm not ashamed to say that I believe in God. Also not ashamed to say I'm not a religious person as far as going to church and that. Maybe I'm a good person in a lot of other ways, but I am not a religious person. I am never going to tell somebody what they should and shouldn't do as far as their religious beliefs. Me, like I said, I don't go to church or nothing. And I get on here sometimes and say off-color jokes and all that. But once again, I'm not saying I'm above God, and I am not trying to fool God. Too many people are getting out there and trying to fool God. And like I said earlier, some people don't even realize it. They don't even equate that. When you go out there and you decide this money is going to be more important to you than anything in this world, even if you're believing God and you're religious and you're putting that money above everything else, and you're saying you're this great Christian or whatever belief it is, and you're doing everything money wise, you're trying to make a fool out of God. He has a plan for everybody. Some of us are not following it, and I'm one of them, but others are. You can't make a fool. Well, you can make a fool out of anybody, but when you make a fool out of the Creator, you have a problem. See, he don't care about the money. He cares about the human being inside. Every one of us' souls are inside, and he loves everyone. But he will not be made a fool of. If you go out there and you're making money under his name, you're saying he's a fool, I got the money. Yes, there's preachers out there, traveling preachers that make buku bucks. They are more worried about what they're putting in their pockets and not what they are preaching. That is, they're taking God's name and they think they're above God. Therefore, they think God is a fool. I mean, some of these people out there are great. And I don't mean that in a good sense. Some are great in a good sense, but they can have a silver tongue and can talk and get you to give them money or even services, food or whatever. And the last thing they care about is God. They see the dollars. They see people giving this and they giving that. See, it ain't always about money. You can do other things and your greed sets in but it comes back down to you trying to make a fool out of God. God wants us to help. He really does. But He don't want us that greed there. And here once again, even if you don't believe in God, you don't want that greed for what you are doing. If you're going to help somebody, you're helping them because you want to help them. You're not looking at it a way to get money. And if God's involved and you're doing that, and instead of helping your neighbor, you're trying to do everything to get the dollars, and you will go to church and you'll ask for forgiveness and you're redoing it again, you're making a fool out of God. At least you think you are. Now, many of us go down different trails in our lives. Many of us believe and some don't believe in God. But those that do believe in God have to remember you will never ever make a fool out of God. It would be impossible. If you believe in God, it would be impossible to do so, because Judgment Day, what are you going to say? How are you going to act? Well, God, I tried to be above you, so we got to go my way. You got to quit your ideals you give on this earth and do it my way, because I showed everybody I can do it this way. You think that's really going to work? Remember, you cannot make a fool out of God.